Could you please state your name and tell us a bit about your background?
Yeah, my name is Derian. I am 26. I am a fourth year student at UFV. I'm part of Generation Z, whatever we want to call it.
Whether you're
Being
American
Canadian.
or Canadian.
I am Canadian. Generation Z.
Yeah, there you go. What do you hope to accomplish by appearing in this video?
I just hope that the person who's representing the older generation, we can come to some common ground. Um, there's a lot of commonalities that people don't realize between the older generation and the newer generation. So I just hope that we find some common ground and similarities and similar ideals, I guess.
What traits or features would you define baby boomers in your perspective?
Well, my parents are baby boomers, so like I guess they're the most evidence that I have, and I just say they're very hardworking people. I know anecdotally my parents didn't have a lot of money growing up, so they've always had that built into them. And my aunts and uncles and grandparents, like they all had that kind of built into them. Not saying that my generation isn't hardworking or ambitious, but I would say that that generation is really built by hardworking, and I think that's a positive. And it can be a negative to a fault because sometimes they can be less understanding of people that need free time or breaks, but I would say hardworking.
And how do you view your own generation?
I, you know, I view our generation as being smarter than people give us credit for. I feel like with phones and social media, sometimes, not saying all the time, older generations can kind of write us off for not knowing as much or relying on the internet or computers. But I think our generation is really, you ask a lot of us, and we're really up to date on current events and geopolitics and the way the economy is going and, just everyday life factors. I think we're smarter than a lot of people give us credit for.
Hmm?
So could you just please start by just saying your name and then a little bit about your background?
My name is Eric Spalding. I'm an associate professor here in Media and Communication Studies here at UFV, and I've been here since 1994.
What would you hope to accomplish by appearing in this video?
I hope I don't mess things up too much for you guys.
Awesome. And what traits or features would you define other generations in your perspective? So the word other generations, how would you kind of define that word?
Other generations, just based on age, just people who are older or younger than me. Yeah.
And then lastly, how do you view your own generation?
I should tell you, I just turned 63, so that gives you an indication of my age. It seems weird to actually say that. It sounds so old, and I guess it is, especially for you guys. And age moment, elder moment. What's the question?
How do you feel about your own generation? So people that are around the same age as you, how would you view them just in their everyday lives? Like how would you view your own generation?
I guess my own generation. I often felt that I missed out on the real baby boomers, the hippie generation, the summer of love, the 1960s, right? The great explosion of wonderful rock and roll music and so on, that I was born a bit too late for that and that I missed out on something.
Fair enough. That's probably good. All right. So we're back here with Generation Infinity. So we got your name,
Darian?
and
Eric.
we're just gonna same thing as the last video. We're just gonna be talking to them about their generation, see if we can foster a little bit of conversation, and yeah, we'll see where we go from there. All right. So the first question I have for you, we'll start with you, is what's the biggest misconception about your generation?
Well, I think about ageism. So my age is 63, so I'm getting into that phase where people probably think about me as an older person, and the misconceptions would be that they lack energy, that they're not open to ideas as much, that they're not as open to popular culture, that they don't take orders, that they may be condescending towards younger people, all those kinds of conceptions, some of which may be misconceptions depending on the person.
Awesome. And we'll go to you, Darian. What's the biggest misconception about your own generation?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest misconception that I can think of is young people's reliance on phones and social media. Not saying that's not a problem, because that is a problem for our generation. We grew up with smartphones and social media and the internet at our fingertips, but I think a lot of us realize the harm that it's doing, psychologically, mentally, and we want to get out of that. I know for myself, I'm trying to stay off my phone as much as possible, and I know a lot of people that are doing that, a lot of friends or people at school. So I think sometimes older generations and even younger generations can just view us as hooked to our phones at all times, but I don't think that's the case for everybody. I think people want to stop going on their phones as much.
Yeah, perfect.
And since you already talked about it, you can bounce to the other side with how has technology shaped your generation?
Well, I have an anecdote about that that seems to deny your conception. Yesterday in class during the break, my students were waiting for class to start again, and no one was talking to anyone else. Everyone was on his or her phone.
Yeah.
And that kind of confirmed my misconceptions or prejudices about young people.
Right, right. And that's the thing. I think phones have affected our social skills so much as well that we see that all the time. I mean, I'm guilty of doing that as well, going on my phone during a break if maybe it's a first class or I don't know that many people in the class. So I think it's a misconception, but there's a lot of truth in it as well. But I guess I just don't really like generalized statements about a group of people because I think that's really harmful. So it is a problem, but I do know, at least for myself, I know that it's something that some of us want to try and change. So
Yeah, for you being a professor here at UFV, would you think yeah, I know that presentations, test taking, and all that is a big part of their curriculum. Would you say that people's reliance on phones has made it harder for them to study properly, to present properly, to do all that stuff in terms of a school perspective?
Yes, I think that's a technological difference between our generations. I think popular culture now is so accessible and so compelling. It's better than it was certainly when I was a young person. You just think about television when I was your age, and Canadian television in particular was horrible. So you didn't have the same temptations and the same accessibility. As a consequence, I think that's why I became a reader, because reading was less of a burden or less of a distraction from watching TV or movies. Even when I was young, it was before the video rental era. So you watched movies in the cinema, which meant paying money and going somewhere to watch a movie, or on TV, which meant sitting through a lot of advertisements and not really getting immersed in the experience. So yeah, as a consequence of lesser quality, lesser accessibility, I feel that I spent more time reading, and as a consequence, I do feel I developed my reading and writing skills.
Yeah. So now going to you, would you say that people in your generations and the time that you've been here at UFE, would you say that the quality of presentations, the quality of studying skills, you say that has been harder? Because I know for myself, when I'm studying for a test, it's hard for me to put down my phone and turn off the alerts and not be distracted by my phone. So you, going off what he said, would you say it's harder for people in your generation to study properly, to present properly, to take tests properly?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, with smartphones being around and having that accessibility that Eric was talking about, I think absolutely it is. It's like you can see so many studies on the psychology of phones and how addicting they are. I know I've had problems trying to study in the past or trying to do homework, and I might be watching a show while I'm doing it, or I get a notification on my phone, and it absorbs you a little bit, right? You want to check it, and then you kind of get lost in the whole of, okay, I'm going to start looking at reels, or I'm going to respond to these people, or go on Reddit or YouTube or whatever it is. It's addicting, and it's definitely a problem. I think AI doesn't make it any easier as well, because before, when it was just smartphones and no AI, you had that distraction of having the internet at your fingertips whenever you want it. But now there's this tool that can essentially do your work for you. And I mean, we all know AI is pretty inaccurate a lot of the time. We know the signs of AI as well in writing, but it doesn't stop students from using it as well to take that easy way out. I was in a class last week and somebody had to do a storyboard for a presentation of a story that they had to do, and it was clearly AI. The images were all AI. So I think like people naturally gravitate towards not putting in the actual work and effort into stuff and taking the easy way out. So I think yes, having smartphones is a distraction, but also with AI, it's just becoming more and more of a problem.
Yeah. Going off what Eric was saying about books, he said that popular culture in his era, it was mostly you had to go to a cinema to watch it. You didn't have Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, all those different things. So, would you say that people in your generation are having a harder time enjoying a book when you have things like audiobooks, movies, and books that are made
Without
about
a doubt.
movies? Would you say that it's harder for
Without a
people in your
doubt.
generation to
Yeah.
enjoy books?
I mean, you look at too, I'm glad that Eric brought that up because a lot of these entertainment industries are dying. Like cinemas are dying. We've seen it. I mean, I know COVID had a huge part in that as well, but you even look at this new Netflix model where they are telling original shows and the writers to keep reiterating plot points because people aren't paying attention to this stuff anymore. They're not focused. We can't even focus on a TV show anymore at this point because of our phones. So Netflix writers are continuously writing plot points and keep repeating this stuff because people are just not paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like I'm a big reader as well, and I'm happy that I am because I think it's made me develop better attention skills in that regard. Little off topic, but I just wanted to put that out there. But yeah, I do think with all these new innovative ways to consume media, it's I mean, you look at TikTok too, right? It's people are focused on these shorter attention span ideas of presenting entertainment, right? That's why TikTok's so popular. So I do think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, and going off what Darian was saying about you were talking about popular culture and you were saying cinemas are dying. Back in when you were Darian's age, were cinemas going to a movie? Was that was a big outing and it was cool to go watch? You couldn't watch a trailer online or something like that. So just in your opinion, like was just going to the cinema, was that a big thing for people around when you were Darian's age?
Oh, absolutely. It was much more commonplace for people to go to the cinema to watch movies. Yeah. Even when it was renting VHS tapes. No, VHS tapes were a way to watch movies without interruption when you rented them, but you still had to physically go to a video rental store and you watch them on your TV screen, which didn't have the sharpest image and the highest quality. And so there was still the temptation of going to the cinema for that full, large screen experience with great sound. Now I think the home competes with that. Even my TV at home has a really sharp image and great sound. So especially since COVID, I've been going to the cinema much less. But it was such a part of my life. Once a week, easily, I'd go to the cinema when I was into my 20s.
Yeah, and I just think the fun little segue from that is when you were Darian's age, what was the most popular movie for your generation?
Gosh, there's so many.
Godfather.
The Godfather, yeah. Though I was a little too young to appreciate it when it came out. I saw that much later. But I went to see Jaws. I remember that. All of the President's Men, Robert Redford movies at the time were really popular. Dustin Hoffman movies. Yeah, the great film directors, Martin Scorsese in his early works. I like those. Raging Bull, Taxi Driver,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of good movies made at the time.
Yeah, and I think it's cool that you still can enjoy movies that were built when Eric was your age. And I think that's a really cool side point too. So how do you view those movies? Do you view those as the classics or do you just view them as older kind of movies?
I mean, I guess I can view them as classics because I mean the film industry didn't know a lot of techniques back then that they do now, right? And these movies still hold up to this day. I'm a huge film lover myself. I love movies like The Godfather, Blade Runner, Kramer versus Kramer. You mentioned Dustin Hoffman.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I love all these movies. Um, you look at any actor, director, writer, and all of their influences come from that era, right? The sort of golden age of film. So I love that stuff personally.
And I personally, just from having like running this channel, and I think it's really cool that you guys, being such different ages, you guys can enjoy, find a common ground when it comes to popular culture, movies, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's important. Do you think, I'll go to you, do you think that people that are in different generations, do you think that they can bond over things like movies, popular culture, all of that different stuff?
I think they can, but I think it's also that I teach media studies, and so I try to keep up with what's coming out in terms of movies and popular music and so on. But if I did teach media studies at my age, I might start just focusing on the music and the movies that I watched and listened to back when I was your age. I can see that temptation in me of saying my brain cells are full now, and I'm just going to live in the past. Very easy to do that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's nostalgia too, right? Like going back to a time when you were, I guess, maybe a bit more innocent when you were a kid or a teenager and experiencing this stuff for the first time. It's easy to look back on. Like I have so many fond memories of watching. I mentioned Kramer versus Kramer, but even stuff like 2001: A Space Odyssey is probably my favorite movie of all time.
Really?
I think it's one of the most groundbreaking movie. I mean, when it was made, people thought the moon landing was fake because of 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that's got to speak to the special effects and the visual effects of it, right? So I love that stuff. I think it's so groundbreaking, and I have a lot of old memories of that because a lot of people in my family were film lovers as well. So I've seen them all. I've seen them all, and I'm sure we could talk about this stuff for hours, honestly. So.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, like in 40 years, if you just dwell upon the popular culture that you enjoyed when you were in 20s. I think there is that kind of temptation. Some of it also has to do with my familiarity with that era, where I think about the actors and I know they were in this film and that film, and the film directors had done that movie before and that movie after. And that kind of comfort level and having all that information when you watch a movie of the time, it makes you appreciate that movie more, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with contemporary movies, I might not know the directors as well and might not be able to contextualize a movie I'm watching alongside other movies made around the same time.
Right, right.
And maybe like looking forward, how do you think, as a media professor here at UFE, how do you think the movie and film industry is going to be when Derian is at your age?
Wow, like in 40 years, how
Yeah.
it's going to be? That's the interesting thing about technology. Like at any point in time, you're content with the technologies you have because you don't know any better. I think people watching silent films in the 1920s went, well, wow, this is much more exciting than anything I've had previously. And I'm happy in the 20s. I've got my newspaper, I've got silent movies, and so on and so forth. So even in 2026, you kind of go, if you don't have a lot of imagination, you go to yourself, well, what more can we have? What more do we need? We have artificial intelligence and so on. But you're right, we're on a spectrum. And it's easy to forget that we're on a spectrum and that we are continuously progressing towards more and more advanced technologies. Now,
Continue.
Oh.
No, keep talking. It's all good.
well, yeah, to answer your question directly, in 40 years, what will popular culture be like? What will the technologies be like? I guess with artificial intelligence, we may see movies that are made to measure. You might tell your computer, and not even type it into your computer, you might say, I want to see a movie set in 1976 in Norway with Humphrey Bogart in the film. Make it for me. And it'll just go, for about 15 seconds, and you'll have your Humphrey Bogart movie with a realistic Humphrey Bogart that speaks like him in Norway in 1976.
Yeah, I think that's interesting as well. So I'll bring from what he was saying there, what do you think movies, popular culture, anything like social media, what do you think that's going to be like when you're Eric's age?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what Eric is saying with AI. I think, especially we see, like I was kind of talking about before, with these short attention spans and people just trying to, I guess it's called, I don't know if it's called fast media or whatever it is, but that consumption rate is so high, whereas putting the effort in is so low, right? So I would just echo those statements of AI is probably going to be dominant. I mean, we're still in such early stages of AI, and I think it's not just in movies, but in all industries, it's going to be a driving factor and towards products. So
All right, I think we've had a great conversation with you, Eric, and Darian today, just about popular cultures, media, like you said, reading. Just to wrap it up, what is something that you wish Darian's generation learned more, respected more, or just had more understanding about your generation?
I guess if it were up to me, I'd just impose, and I'm teaching a popular music course, and I'm imposing my tastes on my students, and I really enjoy that. So I guess just from a selfish perspective, spend more time listening to music of the 70s.
I do. I do a lot.
You already do.
I do a lot. Yeah,
Okay.
I love Led Zeppelin. I love Pink Floyd, Deep Purple. That kind of stuff is right up my alley. King Crimson. I don't know if you listen to King Crimson that much, but
A little bit.
I love like prog rock and all this stuff. So a lot of those early stages where it was the Pink Floyd and the King Crimson, they're like the founders of this genre, right? So I listen to Stevie Wonder too, jumping a bit to a different genre.
yes,
But yeah,
yes.
I mean, Songs in the Key of Life, I think, is one of the best albums ever recorded.
Oh gosh.
I have it on vinyl, so
Song by song.
Yeah.
Indeed. There's
Yeah.
not a dud on the entire
Yeah.
album.
yeah, no, and I've always considered myself a bit of an older soul when it came to pop culture. That's why when we were talking about movies, I knew a lot of the stuff you're talking about and music, and I mean, going to books too. Like my favorite, I guess my favorite writer would probably be George Orwell, just because I love 1984 and Animal Farm and these books. But a lot of the other classics, Fahrenheit 451 or that kind of stuff. I've always been a huge like old media person, so everything that you're saying, I'm loving hearing it. I'm
Okay.
loving hearing it. Yeah,
And I do sound a bit like an old fogey when I say that.
yeah,
I really have to acknowledge that there's still some extraordinary popular music being made right now in
Mhm.
2026. But my old self is saying the 70s were
Yeah.
better.
yeah. Of
And then
course.
going to you, what is something that you wish? I know you guys have found a lot of common ground, which I think is incredibly interesting. A lot of common ground when it comes to music, pop culture, everything like that. But what is something that you wish that Eric's generation knew more about you, your generation?
In regards to pop culture,
In regards to pop culture, in regards to just generational gap, and in regards to anything like that.
I'll stick with pop culture because that's kind of what
The conversation.
we've been talking about
Yeah.
is, and again, like I said, I don't want to make like any super generalized statements because not one person is not indicative of what a whole generation is. But just going off anecdotally, and you kind of did mention that you know that there's a lot of great music coming out these days. But anecdotally, like some people, like my parents, like they won't even give a second thought to a lot of the music that's coming out nowadays, and people don't realize how impactful some of the music that's come out has been genre spanning. I mean, you look at like hip hop acts like Kendrick Lamar or Doechii. You can go to rock and metal. I mean, one of my favorite bands is Avenged Sevenfold. They're doing a lot of super experimental stuff, but I think a positive of technology in pop culture is there's so much more accessibility to newer sounds that can be created, and bands especially, like they want that creative voice, they want to make something original, so they will keep trying to make that thing that's wholly new. And I think that's a really cool drive that a lot of musicians have nowadays, and I think the end result is we're getting a lot of super interesting music from it. I don't think I need to be telling you this because you already said that you recognize that there's a lot of great music that's coming out in the last few years or decades or whatever it is. But I guess to the people at home, I would say try some of the newer stuff out. You might like it. I feel like there can be prejudice. I mean, as a young person, I know a ton of people that wouldn't listen to music back then. But the other way around too, right? Like with my parents, I know they wouldn't just go and listen to a Kendrick Lamar album. I mean, they don't like hip hop, so they never would anyways. But some newer rock bands, I don't think they would do it or really give it the time of day. So I just say like for both sides, experience the other generation stuff because we have so many commonalities when we think about it. And you might like it.
Yeah.
You might like it.
Well, I think that's all. I think that's all we have for today. But I just want to thank you, Eric, and thank you, Derian, for coming in. I think the conversation that we had with both of you guys in terms of pop culture, in terms of media, in terms of music, movies, books, all of that stuff. I think that's really interesting because it is something that can bring two generations together and have a common understanding of. And I think that helps bridge that generational gap or some of that ageism that you were talking about. I think that helps bridge it, and it just brings a common understanding between both generations here. So that is all we have for today. I want to thank you guys. I want to thank once again you guys for both coming out and having this conversation. We'll see you guys next week.